Welcome back to another edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast. Steve Buchanan here with my co-host, Julian Edlow. We're back in our normal realms. We're no longer in New Jersey at the DraftKings Sports Betting National Championship. Julian is finally back. Everybody is back from that.
You said it correctly. Congratulations.
I did, because I had to do it so many times during our promo that now it's embedded into my head. As you'll see, if you're watching here on YouTube or wherever you watch your podcast, we have a special guest, returning guest, second time on the show, Mitch Moss from VSiN. We met a lot of the VSiN guys out at the event in New Jersey. But Mitch, as always, appreciate you having coming back and being on the show again.
It's great to be here, fellas. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Hope all is well.
And we're going to be doing plenty of Week 10 NFL football, and then these guys will talk about sports that I know nothing about, so I will skedaddle on out of here and let professionals take over in that realm. But like I told Julian, stick with what you're good at. Don't try to get into other sports that you're not good at, because then I'll be giving bad information. Not that I won't do that with NFL anyways, but at least I try to think that some of the information is good. So with that in mind, let's just get right off and start right off here. Tonight, we have Ravens at the Miami Dolphins going tonight. The Ravens are 7.5-point favorites on the spread, -400 on the money line. Over under on this game set at 46.5. Let's just get right into it, Julian. What are we thinking about this game here? Quite frankly, I think this is, and we talked about this on Tuesday, the first piece of your teaser bet for this week with the Ravens at -7.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
The question is, where do you finish the teaser this week? And we'll get to that when we go to the Sunday board. I wish the money, this could be a rare week. There's always more value in teasers than there is money line parlays. Yep. But because I don't like that many other legs, I was hoping to make the Ravens a piece of a money line parlay. But this number's jumping around all day on DraftKings. The spread hasn't moved. The spread's been 7.5 all day, all week. I saw the money line down at 350 this morning, and now it's 400. That's taken away a lot if you're going to try and find another leg. I really wish this was 7. Maybe I'm just being a little too cautious here because I've been getting banged up the last few weeks, and maybe I should just suck it up and lay it with the Ravens. I think this is going to be a beatdown. I think that Baltimore should handle them in this game. We know that Baltimore historically, whether it be Harbaugh or Lamar Jackson, who's got a kind of a homecoming of sorts here in Miami, has always just kind of smoked the Ravens. The Dolphins. So for me, it's a great teaser leg at the 7.5. If you have something you're confident about, Browns up to 8.5, Vikings up to 9, the Cowboys or the Steelers down to 2. If some of these things jump out to you, go for it. Get through your key numbers. I'm going to think about it up until kickoff, but or just lay in the 7.5. I'm going to back the Ravens in some way. Yeah. But this is one that's going to get towards game time for me to kind of figure out.
Mitch, what do you think about this one here too? Obviously the Ravens have been pretty up and down all year. The Dolphins have just been almost feels like dead in the water, except for that week 1 win. What are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, I don't think Miami's very good, regardless of who the quarterback is. I certainly think that Tua is an upgrade over Brissett. I don't mind Tua. I think he's pretty decent, and I hate it when people give up on young quarterbacks after one game or a month or a week or I should say a year or whatever. I mean, give it some time here. I think he has some weapons, but I don't think they're very good. The defense stinks so far this year. Now the Ravens, in totality, compared to some of the other best teams in the NFL, where do the Ravens truly rank in terms of a power rating? I'm still a little confused about this team because you can gash this team on defense. Through the year, they're allowing almost 300 yards per game. And, let's be honest here for a second. They're a lot of fun to watch. They are must-watch TV to this point. And a lot of it is because they fall behind a lot of times big in these games. And then it's okay, Lamar, now go do your magic and see if you can bring us back and win the game on the field. And he's done it. I mean, think about this. They have fallen behind by at least 10 points 4 times this year. He's 3-1 coming back to win outright, to win straight up. I mean, that's great. So, I mean, that part you have to love. But on the flip side, you got to think to yourself, well, wait a second, why are they getting out to these big deficits all the time? Why does that continue to happen? And when you go back and look at their overall resume, I mean, that Colts game, I can't forget. I mean, the fact that the Colts did not hang on to win that game up 22-3 in the second half is that tells me a lot, I think. about that team, but also the Ravens couldn't do anything in the first half. And when they had to have it, they got it. But that's not the only game. They've had plenty of examples here throughout the year now where this is kind of how they play. But I will be alarmed tonight if Miami with Brissett, if he's going to be the starting quarterback, if they get a lot of yards, like in big chunks, and they get out in front of Baltimore early, maybe even big, and then Baltimore has to come roaring back to maybe win the game. Because now 8 weeks into the season, 9 weeks into the season, we'll know, I think, a lot about their defense if that happens tonight. But I don't know if that's going to happen, just because, like you guys talked about, the Ravens have owned this team. Harbaugh is 9-0 ATS in his career against Miami. It's incredible. And if you recall, going back to two years ago, Lamar, when he lit him on fire and, 59-10 was the final score, that was the beginning of his MVP season. So Miami's, better off than what they were that season when they were so bad. But Baltimore should be able to do whatever they want on offense in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, you bring up that point too, and I got this from Joe Osborne, our friend over at Oddchalk, that Miami's actually been one of the best covered teams in the first quarter, and the Ravens have been one of the worst teams in the first quarter. So talking about that hot start, the fast start for the Dolphins, and then that's been with the Ravens. They're constantly playing catch up, but they do end up winning these games outright. So if that's an angle maybe you want to take out for this game, I think that's something that you could definitely do. But I was happy you brought that up, because you really were spot on with how these two teams have started these games out.
Well, honestly, it makes sense to, if you don't want to get involved before the game starts, like just straight up and laying the 7.5 with the Ravens, I would maybe wait in play, right? Like if the Dolphins would get out to a 7-0 lead, right, or a 10-3 lead, something like that, then it's like, okay, this is where Baltimore is going to come back, and I have faith in Lamar, winning this game outright at that point. But I would agree with what you guys are talking about with the teasers too. I'm confident in Baltimore and teasers this week.
So before we connect those teaser legs, I guess, and move on to Sunday and look at some of those spots in which we have, massive favorites once again in a week after underdogs absolutely dominate sportsbooks clean up, I think makes that board all the more interesting. But really quick, let's just dive into the rest of the Thursday night games. Everybody loves to play the primetime props, whether it be first touchdown scores, yardage, all that stuff. One of the spots I like going to, and I'll be honest, right before we came on this podcast, right around 12:30 in the afternoon on the East Coast, I put out my Thursday night best bets article, in which I had Lamar Jackson rushing attempts, Devontae Freeman rushing yards, Hollywood Brown long reception, things like that. Yeah. And I think my favorite bet was just put up on DraftKings after I put my article out, which is classic. So I'll go back and maybe flip this, but Devontae Freeman attempts, even money on over 10.5. He's been becoming a larger part of the backfield recently as everybody kind of gets dinged up for Baltimore. We have this like classic 2011 fantasy football backfield of Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman. Almost alternating series, but Freeman's been good other than the game they got blown out against the Bengals, where the game script completely went against Baltimore. He had 9 carries for 53 yards against the Chargers in week 6. Then he had 13 for 79 against Minnesota. He's becoming a bigger piece. And if this is going to be a game with you're more than a touchdown favorite here against a defense that hasn't been all that great, the Freeman workload, I feel like is going to be there.
Yeah, I can add on to that if you guys would like.
Go for it.
The Murray ankle injury certainly is big. And some of the numbers here with Freeman. So he had a 58% snap share last week against Minnesota. That 58% mark is the second highest workload of any Ravens back so far on the season, if you can believe it.
Wow.
And you couple that with Le'Veon Bell averaging 2.9 yards per carry, it makes sense that Freeman would be the guy tonight. And based on the point spread, if we're going to get like a margin like this, when they're going to be running the ball, 9.5 attempts, the second half, right, when they want to control the clock and just bleed it and, hang on to that lead, that kind of makes some sense to me.
And that's almost one, like, really quick. If Freeman goes over 10.5 attempts, like there's almost no way that's in a Baltimore loss, right? It feels like. So if you want action on the Ravens and you're not laying the 7.5, same game parlay on DraftKings Sportsbook, that it's even money on the 10.5 carries. Let me actually go in and see. Obviously, you'll get good plus money on just getting the Ravens money line in there, but maybe we can even go down a carry or two and get even money if you go to the Ravens on the money line and fewer carries. You can keep talking if you have like a prop in this game, Steve, that you want to talk about, and I'll loop back to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just be all over Marquise Brown again. Obviously, had that monster game last week against Minnesota Vikings. But you look at the matchup for him this week in coverage, it's going to be seeing a lot of Xavier Howard, who's been great at limiting the catches. 55.6% reception rate against him. But when they are catching the ball against him, an average of 14.4 yards per reception, he's been scored on 7 times. Yep. This season so far, 7 times already. So you look at a couple of the props here for Marquise Brown, over 63.5 receiving yards. That's fine. I mean, literally he could do that in just a couple of catches. Anytime touchdown, you're not getting, great plus money on this, as you would imagine. He's the top one on here, plus 110 on him, actually higher, a better odds than Lamar Jackson. I mean, we usually win these games with Lamar Jackson. He's usually the top dog for an anytime touchdown score, sometimes even under plus money, but he's plus 115 for this one as well. But really, there's just a lot to like about Marquise Brown in this game. Plus 110 for the anytime touchdown score, over 63.5 receiving yards. Like both of those, it's going to be a tough matchup because, like I said, Howard doesn't let a lot of receptions when the ball is thrown to him, but when they are going downfield against him. So with the speed that Marquise Brown possesses, obviously being the wide receiver one in this offense, I'm all over him tonight.
Yeah. What happened to Howard, by the way? 10 INTs last year. And right now he is Pro Football Focus's 88th ranked cornerback. I mean, that's a serious fall from grace. And overall, the Miami secondary, fellas, they've allowed, this is pretty incredible. They've surrendered 4 wide receiver touchdowns and a 100-yard receiver in their last 3 games. So wow. I think it opens up for Brown tonight. I'm also looking for stuff. I haven't seen anything yet with Bateman tonight, but Bateman's also been, in 3 games back since the injury, he's been targeted 20 times. And I think Bateman's going to have one of these breakout games sometime soon. So I'd pay attention to him, see what you can find on Bateman tonight as well.
Yeah, definitely. He's Lamar Jackson definitely has some with him quick.
Yep.
No Bateman props as we record on DraftKings Sportsbook at the moment. So nothing up quite yet. And also my same game parlay was too smart. It is not on the board. You cannot follow the Ravens money line with Devontae Freeman rushing attempts. So me being smart.
But you know what? That's good thinking, man. Outside the box. That's a great way to correlate the game.
Too smart, man. Give me what I want. And this is where I work at DraftKings. Give me what I want. They'll do it. They'll hear me. All right. Any other Thursday night football takes before we move on to Sunday from either of you?
Nope.
Ravens roll, and we like the props on the Baltimore side, obviously.
Yeah, I think Gesicki can have a pretty good game as well. He's turned into a pretty good weapon. In Baltimore, they're not good at, in fact, they're one of the worst teams at covering tight ends in the entire league.
Yep.
And so, I think his yards prop, what I saw earlier before the podcast started, was around 54.5. But I like him tonight as well. He's been playing great football. He's been a serious target for the Dolphins. And again, the Ravens are really bad against that position.
53.5 on the Gesicki yards on DraftKings Sportsbook. And I was just looking at over, never mind, that's Gaskin. 4.5 receptions, minus 105 to the over on Gesicki there.
Yeah, 3 of the last 4 games for the Ravens, at least 50 yards or more from opposing tight end. So they are definitely having issues back there.
Very, very good. Very good.
All right. So I mentioned Sunday. We're coming off a week where dogs go 10-4 ATS. We're coming off a week where we say nobody's going to top the Jets over the Bengals. And then the Jaguars beat the Bills in a game without a touchdown. I don't know what's going on, but I have to think after a week like that, some of these favorites are going to start coming through, but the numbers are so big. So now we look at this board. Buffalo is down. It was a much larger number, but Buffalo's down to a minus 11 at the Jets. Another big road one. Tampa off a loss, off a bye, laying 9 going to Washington. Dallas coming off another. If Buffalo didn't lose to Jacksonville, how much more are we talking about Denver absolutely smacking Dallas?
Yep.
Dallas laying 8 to Atlanta. I'm going in order on DraftKings Sportsbook here. They're just all huge spreads. Pittsburgh, not an impressive team, just got by the Bears and needed some potential help from the officials. Lays 8 against the winless Lions. A little bit more of a game here, an intriguing game. Tennessee, red hot, 4 wins in a row outright as a dog, laying 2.5 hosting the Saints. Then you have the mighty Jaguars sitting as 10-point dogs against Indy. Interesting big game in the AFC. Pats laying 2.5 at home to the Browns. Big one with playoff indications. Here we go again. Cardinals 10.5 at home to the Panthers. Chargers laying 3 to the Vikings. Denver laying 3 to the Eagles. Both of those teams at home. Another 3-point home favorite. Packers favored by 3 over Seattle. And then the nightcap is out by you, Mitch. Out Raiders 2.5-point dogs against the Chiefs in I feel like that Sunday night Chiefs Raiders game that we get every year is always a weird high scoring game that the Raiders always have a chance to win or do win.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we start here? Like, I guess since we were talking teasers on Thursday night, let's kind of fill in there first. These favorites are also big, like almost all of them are over 9, so you can't even tease them down through 3, which is what you need to do to get the value here. The only 2 that fit the criteria are getting Dallas or Pittsburgh, who are both at home hosting the Falcons and Lions, down to 2. And feel free to go to a dog teasing them up if you want, Mitch, but any teaser legs that jump out to you here?
Well, I think the 2 that you just mentioned would make some sense. First off, with the Cowboys, does this number, make that much sense to you guys? I mean, they're laying 8 now at home to the Falcons. Last week, they were laying 10 to the Broncos. I get it. They were blown out. It was 30-0 at one point. But how are they laying? This is the way I'm thinking about it right now. How are they laying 8 to Atlanta, but they were 10 to Denver?
Right.
Because I would think that the Broncos on a neutral would be at a minimum a pick 'em against Atlanta, and I would have Denver favored over the Falcons. So I think I'd be okay with teasing Dallas down below 3 to 2. And then, look, if the Lions beat me, they beat me, and it won't even bother me, right? I on teasers, like, I'm okay teasing Baltimore down with the Steelers to 2 at this point. And if that's how I lose the ticket, so be it. I move on. Onward and upward.
So, Mitch, I was talking to Julian about this too, and that going back to the Falcons, I feel like the perception on them is so high because they're winning games right now. And this is the team that was supposed to go nowhere, but they're beating these teams that are all under 500, right? But you look at the schedule coming up.
Except for the Saints.
Except for the Saints, right? But again, we're talking about a Saints team with Trevor Siemian, so like I don't really like consider that like a strong win. I mean, it's a bad team with Trevor Siemian. But then coming up, they face the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Jaguars, whatever, and then the Buccaneers. So like this train that the Falcons are perceived to be on is going to come to a screeching halt over the next month or so. So I feel like you're actually getting somewhat of a decent number on the Cowboys because I feel like the perception is so high on the Falcons when in reality, this team is going to be nowhere close to where they are a month from now. Would you maybe agree with that?
No, totally agree. That's why, like if let's say Dallas doesn't have that disaster, or let's say, let's forget about that game for a second. And let's say Dallas played Atlanta last week instead, before Atlanta came back, hung on to beat the Saints and the Cowboys. Before that game, the Cowboys were undefeated ATS. Do you think the number would be down to 8? I don't think it would be. I think it would be sitting at a rock solid 10, maybe even 10.5.
Yeah.
And, I'll tip my cap to Matt Ryan. He's actually been putting up some pretty good numbers lately. But other than that Saints game, I think you're spot on with the schedule and how they've gotten kind of healthy here lately. And I don't like the team. I think I can't bet the Falcons at all. I gave up on them early on in the season. I can't do it. No, thanks. If you want to, go ahead. But that's the way I look at that game for sure. And I guess my problem would be with the Cowboys. I don't like Mike McCarthy. I don't think he's a good football coach. And this goes back so long now. And we've had the discussion over recent weeks of all of the quote, true contenders in the AFC or the NFC, who would be the weakest link, coach, player, whatever. And our conclusion was it would be Mike McCarthy on the Cowboys and anything on any team that we considered a true contender. So that would be the one area where I'd be like, oh man, getting involved in the Cowboys here this week might be a little dicey, but still, I think I almost have to do it just based on the number.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. You're right that this number would have been higher. So we're getting value on making it an eligible teaser leg, because it wouldn't be if the number was what it should have been. So if you're a value better, you almost feel like you have to use it. And on the Lions side, I've teased against the Lions when they're at this number all season. And I got by on the Justin Tucker field goal. I got by on the Vikings game-winning field goal. The Lions are going to get me at some point, so I'm terrified of them. I
feel like this is the week. The Steelers are just bad.
They're bad.
They're bad.
They owe me a teaser loss. So, like, I guess in conclusion, I'm saying I'll use Dallas before Pittsburgh as a teaser leg, which seems weird to say because the Falcons are in the playoff picture now, and the Lions are still winless. So it's like you're fading the wrong team, but Dallas is obviously a better team than Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Or you're fading the better team, but backing the better team as well, I guess, in Dallas, if that makes sense.
Well, are you guys okay with teasing the Raiders up? Because it's 2.5 right now.
Yes.
Past 3.
Right. You can get it to the 8.5.
That was going to be the point that I was going to bring up, that I think like one of the best dog to tease up is the Raiders. I mean, how many times have we talked about how bad the Chiefs are against the spread? Mm-hmm. I mean, they can't even cover against Jordan Love and how bad that he looked. And the Packers were still able to cover in that game. So now you have, Derek Carr, who obviously is lacking some weapons for reasons that, you can all figure out on your own. But to give them over a touchdown against the Chiefs team, who just, really didn't even look that great against the Packers. Like the Packers are a decent defensive team, but with all the weapons that they have, they should have been able to put up more points against the Packers. So I have absolutely no problem with doing Raiders 8.5. I think that's a great number on them for a team that just cannot cover in the Kansas City Chiefs.
Here's the way I would look at that game, because the Chiefs have been so bad at covering these big numbers, and the number that you can get on the teaser leg is 8.5. Well, let's just pretend for a second that the point spread was 8.5. The Chiefs were laying that amount on Sunday night. Would that not be your biggest bet of the week by far?
Yeah.
To me, it would be.
Probably.
So, and that's the way I look at it in terms of, tied it into the whole teaser talk here. And so I'm okay with how could anybody be surprised if the Raiders win this game outright the way the Chiefs have looked lately?
Right. No, not at all.
Mitch, let's talk about the Raiders real quick, because we had you on this podcast over the summer, and I know that you said that you had a big win total as my curtain falls down. Man, right. All right, well, we got something for the Friday blooper. Move over to the side real quick.
There you go.
We're on the move. My lighting should be fantastic right now. Ever since daylight savings time, the time we record this podcast, the sun has now shifted and it's right in my face at my desk. So I put a curtain up today. It was working great until now. So, all right. I hope we can use this to benefit us in some way. But I'm a professional. We move on. And this is basically what's happening to our Raiders bet. Our Raiders under 8. I was on it with you when we recorded. It had moved to 7. We were getting great value. CLV has just been in a trash can, though, this season, because it has meant nothing to anyone. But when you gave your analysis on this play, I was like, you took it out of my head. I bet it for the exact same reasons. The weapons had gotten worse. The offensive line was a strength of the team last year, and now it was complete turnover to some rookies, some guys we've seen commit dumb penalties. And here they are, a threat to win the AFC West. What you're obviously out there in that neighborhood. Like, what is the feeling around this team? How are they so good? And a million distractions. Gruden, Ruggs, the other first round pick. Go ahead. What's going on?
I don't think really anybody has the answer for that, other than with the new defensive coordinator, and the defense has actually been playing a lot better than recent years. The defense is actually pretty good, and some of the guys they brought in the offseason worked out. But I mean, if you go back to our discussion before the season, the main reason why I liked it under this year, well, a couple of reasons. I thought the schedule was very difficult, and based on, win-loss records for this year, that kind of a thing, the SOS was very difficult for the Raiders, one of the most difficult schedules in the entire league. But then on top of that, it's because I went back and looked at the recent drafts under Mayock and Gruden. They've been terrible.
Yes.
Absolutely god-awful, with the exception of like Max Crosby. Other than that, like, look at the 2020 draft now with what happened, the tragic story with Henry Ruggs, but beyond, and now Arnett, the same thing. like nobody's even on the roster anymore. They traded him other than Brian Edwards. Like that's it from 2020. But like the other drafts in 2019, Cleveland Farrell going 4th overall doesn't even play. They whiffed on Hunter Renfrow was a good pick, but they've whiffed on so many guys. And this was the year you were going to start to have, you need like impact players that are in their 2nd, 3rd, 4th years to step up this season. And I did not expect any of that to happen. So it's like Derek Carr until last week, Derek Carr was playing great football. And other than that, it's just like if you add on top of that, the Gruden mess, what happened with Ruggs, maybe it's finally going to catch up with them here a little bit, because can you imagine a team going through what they've been through, the lack of production that they've gotten from key guys they've drafted over recent years, and yet they might win that division. I gave up on my win total when they were 3-0. I have an under 8 at -130. That was a really good bet. And when they were 3-0, I'm like, well, that was fun while it lasted. I have no chance to get out from underneath this one. So I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't.
You're so right about the draft picks thing. Like, I can't remember the last time I've watched the draft, and as soon as we see the Raiders selection pop up, somebody's like, oh, well, I mean, they took him at 12. I had this guy ranked 53rd. Yep. It's always an outrageous reach. And yet here they are. So that's
2020 was the biggest too. Because I remember when they drafted Pharrell, and we were like, wait, what? And then we were like trying to find
that was 19.
Was it 19?
Yes. Okay. I remember because I think I had over 2.5 Clemson prospects in the first round.
Oh, okay.
And there were 2 guys that were like locks, and Pharrell was the guy that was like, is he going to go in the back end? And the Raiders took him 4. That's how I cashed that bet. That's how I remember that. I will not forget that.
Incredible.
Like, is this guy going to go? Is he not? And then I like spit out whatever I was drinking.
So with that fair, now you're even with the Raiders because they gifted you one before. Now you're even.
I don't like. I'm just hoping for some regression. This isn't even real analysis, but like the reason that I maybe wouldn't make them a teaser leg is because I'm expecting regression from this team. Like if the Gruden and Ruggs stuff caught up to them this week and they lost to the Chiefs, if the Chiefs have a get right game, like would that be the most shocking result in the world? No.
But on that end though, even if there is regression, is it enough that the Chiefs can still cover 8.5? I don't think it is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a real teaser leg. It's a real teaser leg for sure.
Hey, real quick, let me just throw one more out there. What about Seahawks at Packers with Russell Wilson expected to return? So you get them up to 9.
Yeah. I don't hate it. We have so many of these 2.5 threes on the board that you can get up to 8 to 9. And it's hard, like use any of them. Anytime you use a 3-point dog and say, I'll make them a 9-point dog for you, it's hard to argue against you. Right. Like that's why picking these teaser legs is so selective. They all look good, but you have to find the ones that actually are good. I would here's devil's advocate why you don't do Seattle. Maybe Russell Wilson, it's a broken finger on his throwing hand. Maybe he's not totally right going into a tough atmosphere at Lambeau. And maybe you get a pissed off Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers isn't the most positive guy in the, news circuit right now, but he's a weird dude. And maybe this pisses him off and he has a great game and they blow out the Seahawks at home.
Yep.
No numbers, no analytics, all like just storylines, gut feel stuff.
Well, and I'll add on top of that with this, like which quarterback in the league has been phenomenal, like in 1-score games. I mean, it's like this, the Seahawks, they never get blown out with Russell Wilson. I'm pretending here for a second that he's going to come back and he's going to be okay. Nothing's wrong with the middle finger anymore. And they always they either squeak out these 1-score games. Like that's been their MO for the last 3 or 4 years somehow, or it's like it's a tight game and they lose it by like a field goal. So getting 9 with the Seahawks there, to be honest, I think I got to stay away from the game. There's too many unknowns.
Sure.
Yep.
Nope. That's fair.
Stay away game for me as well. Okay, let's go. Forget teasers. Let's just go to the board, sides and totals on Sunday, and we can include Monday Night Football here. The Rams, who screwed all of my teasers on Sunday night against Tennessee as 3.5-point favorites at the Niners. We can include that one in here. Mitch, any sides, totals that are jumping out to you in week 10? Because as the season goes on and basketball's here, I'm a big basketball bettor. The more selective I'm getting and the less NFL I'll be betting.
Sure. Well, I like that game they talked about on Monday night. Although, like, if ever we've been in a stretch where you need to like do the opposite, it's the NFL right now, because some of the results from last weekend. I mean, right? Now it's week 10. We have more questions going into week 10 than ever before this entire season, I think, right? Like, how many answers do we really have about some of these teams at the top? Not a lot. I don't believe.
Well, we were saying, who's even good right now? Who's a good team right now?
The answer is everybody sucks. That's the correct answer.
Yeah, I'm right. Or which, you know what? This is funny. Not in a ha-ha way, but I guess it's funny. The team that you can trust the most right now is probably Tennessee. I mean, look at the stretch of football that they're on. And this is even without Derrick Henry taking care of the Rams the other night with less than 200 yards of offense. But I was making the case before the season that you wanted to, if the number was right, you wanted to bet the Colts before week 6, because the Colts schedule was very difficult in the first 5 weeks. The Titans schedule was easy. And then beginning in week 6 for the Titans, it went Bills, Chiefs, Colts, Rams, Saints. And I'm like, well, they're going to be what, 2 and 3 tops in that stretch? If they beat the Saints, they're going to be 5-0 in that stretch of games right now.
Yeah.
And that's who, come on. Nobody would have had that a month and a half ago. Nobody would have, right? Yep. And so now can they keep it up one more time against the Saints team that, I mean, major question marks at quarterback. Kamara missed practice on Wednesday. The thing is, their defense is really good. The Saints defense is really, really good.
Yeah.
But boy, I almost like the Titans there. And another favorite that I do like is, look, the 49ers home field. It's the opposite of home field advantage. They're actually better off getting away from where they play their games, because they can't. They're what is it, 1-11 or something like that straight up in the last. It's something crazy like that going back a couple of years now. They can't win games there. And I just think there are major problems with this organization right now. And yes, the Rams looked bad on Sunday night. Stafford kind of had some of those really bad throws that he had on occasion with the Lions. But the Rams are just simply a much better football team than the 49ers. And I think they can smash them up on Monday night.
Those are two of the spots that jumped to me, to be honest. And the Saints are kind of turning, or at least were earlier in the week, a sharper side against Tennessee.
Yep.
And it's really all because of that defense. You mentioned how good the defense is. But if it's Trevor Siemian and a dinged up or no Kamara, can't get, like, if it's 2.5 at home for Tennessee, the way they're playing, I think you got to go there. And then the bounce back for the Rams against a bad 49ers team that, as you mentioned, has no kind of home field advantage. Not that home field and the advantage right now is something you want to pay too much attention to in the NFL. No matter who you are. The only other thing that I've bet so far this week, I did take the Patriots at a pick right before the COVID news came out for Cleveland. That's now sitting at 2.5 minus 140. Would not shock me at all if the Browns just march into Gillette Stadium and win, where the Patriots have been dreadful at home. But it does seem like the Patriots have found something. The defense is playing pretty well. Baker Mayfield's coming off a big game, which is usually where you want to fade him on the road the next week against a decent defense to have a bad game. I do like the Patriots. I don't know if I would do anything now at 2.5, 140, but the board is tough. It'll be a few selections for me this week.
Mitch, I'm curious your thoughts on the Bills Jets game. This is slid 2 points. Now the Bills are only 11-point favorites in this one. And I was talking to Julian about this off the air too. Like, they easily could have lost that game against Miami. They did lose that game against Jacksonville. This offense, like, really, aside from that fourth quarter against the Dolphins, has looked inept. And not saying that the Jets are anything special defensively, but Mike White's looked, pretty good before he got hurt against the Colts. He looked obviously amazing against the Bengals. I don't want to take a side in this one, but do you read into anything that this line has dropped pretty significantly in the past couple of days?
Well, maybe I was a little bit surprised the Bills were laying like 13 initially to begin the week. They just looked, and again, do we have to just forget about what happened in Jacksonville, or are some sirens going off maybe around this team? Because the offense, and I'll tell you what, like, I'm believing in, and I have now since like the beginning of the season, after a couple of weeks, whatever, like, the regression's been there for Josh Allen. I cannot believe that he's like one of the favorites to win the MVP. He should not be there. And I watched that whole game last week. They were so bad. And it was basically every facet of the game. The penalties they couldn't control the penalties. The defense couldn't really, it felt like Jacksonville had the ball the entire game because the offense couldn't do anything. The run blocking is atrocious. They don't even try to run the football. I guess rightfully so. They've had some injuries on the offensive line, but they could not protect Josh Allen last week either. And maybe there's something to this with the OC for the Jets, LaFleur, the Packers head coach's brother, now going to the press box the last 2 games. And now the offense is suddenly clicking. And I know the defense was terrible the last 2 weeks against Cincy and the Colts. So maybe the Bills get right on offense, but maybe the Jets offense is actually coming, they found something here a couple of weeks ago against the Bengals and coming back against the Colts with Mike White. I have a lot of question marks about the Bills. Where's Stephon Diggs? Can he have a big game? What happened to the 2020 Stephon Diggs?
Right.
I need to see him a couple of times here in the regular season. We really haven't had a breakout game from him. And I've watched Allen this year just miss the mark on a bunch of passes down the field. They didn't even try to go deep last week against Jacksonville.
No.
I was really confused by that game. So this is probably another stay away spot for me.
Josh Allen being plus 400 in the MVP field kind of opens up value other places. Just when you have somebody that's near a favorite, eating up, a piece of that pot, you're going to have value. So I think that's interesting. And the same goes for Heisman right now with Bryce Young somehow still favored, which we can talk about. But let's touch on futures real quick before we get out of here. Tom Brady at plus 350. I think there's a little value there with Josh Allen being there at 400. Lamar Jackson at 1,000. These aren't nearly the best numbers that you would have gotten on these guys this season, but we are where we are. Those are the two, Brady and Jackson, that jump out to me. Any MVP takes from either of you guys?
I mean, this kind of feels like the whole Robbie Ray thing again, right? And obviously for a while,
you got to bring up baseball on your Robbie Ray ticket.
Sorry, but I mean, to be fair, obviously it's tough for wide receivers to win this award, but Cooper Kupp for what he's doing at 80-1 is crazy. Those are some crazy big odds for him. And obviously there's a lot for him to overcome, but if the Rams keep winning, if he keeps getting fed the ball like he is, this guy is almost consistently putting up 100 yards a game every week, Devontae Adams type numbers. He's the number one guy in the red zone.
Who's the last receiver to win MVP? I have to assume it's Jerry Rice. I have no idea. Do we know this?
I think he did it in 87 in the strike shortened year.
Oh, so 87, the year I was born, is the last year a receiver.
I think that's accurate. Yep.
And again,
Cooper Kupp's having a great year, but he's not going to win MVP.
And no, I'm not saying that this is something to put all your money on, but at the odds that he's at, Mahomes is ahead of him at 65-1. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense at this point. But I bring up the Robbie Ray. I bring up the Robbie Ray thing because there were guys ahead of him at the time that weren't even pitching. Tyler Glasnow was on the IL and he was ahead of him in the MVP race. It doesn't make any sense. Right. So at the number you're getting, there is some value there, considering some of the guys that are in front of him. That's all I'm saying. I
mean, what if Cooper Kupp finishes, 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns on the year? He shouldn't get consideration?
Sure. Consideration.
Should be. You know what? It's unfortunate for people who actually bet Derrick Henry because this could have been the year where running back.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that he was playing, right? With how many carries, the yards, the touchdowns, where he could have actually stolen it from. Because if there's no separation at the top, why can't a running back or somebody else like that steal the award? I think that's possible. But I'm with you, Julian. I think you want to maybe get ahead of it tonight before the Ravens play, because what if Jackson goes nuts again? You can kiss 10-1 goodbye.
Definitely.
It's not like this is a spot where he should go up in the odds after tonight if the Ravens just do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
I do anticipate that. I'll run one future by you guys. And so I do think that DraftKings, I think they're onto this compared to other spots because they have them at 25-1 to win the Rookie of the Year. It's Javonte Williams. Just let me give you some numbers on this guy. And first of all, I will fully admit this. I am a truther or an apologist, or I love the kid, however you want to phrase it. I think the kid's super special. And it's for those of us who have him in keeper leagues and that kind of thing in fantasy, we've wanted him to steal that spot from Melvin Gordon now for a while. And Melvin Gordon's actually playing pretty decent, right? He's playing some pretty good football. So it's not like Denver can just say, sit down, Melvin, you're not going to play again this year. But okay, so here are the numbers on Williams. Per Pro Football Focus, he has forced 35 missed tackles on run plays. That's more than 19 teams in the league.
Wow. What?
Think about that. He had a career high last week, 17 carries. He went for $111 against Dallas. Now here's the upcoming schedule for Denver and who they play. The Eagles this week, they allow 120 yards on the ground and they're 20th overall in rush defense DVOA. The week after that, well, they're on a bye week. Then they get the Chargers. They allow 161 on the ground. They're dead last in DVOA. Then they get the Chiefs. They allow $122 on the ground. Then the Lions, 135.
Wow.
The Bengals are actually pretty good. They allow 100, and they're about middle of the pack in DVOA. But then after that, it's the Raiders who allow 134 yards rushing per game. The Chargers again, and the Chiefs again after that. Like, I don't know if he can win the award because Chase has really cemented himself here as the favorite, and Mac Jones has, he's really picking up. Like, the narrative is going to be there for him as well. What I'm saying is, don't be surprised if he stays healthy the entire year. The numbers on Javonte Williams a month and a half from right now are going to look sensational. And so, like DraftKings, I think they know this. That's why they have him 25-1. But I think there's something there with that kid. And again, I fully admit that I'm a big fan of his anyway. But there's watch out for that in the future to really change.
One thing, Williams, I feel like that should be more of like a 50-1 type of thing. But like you said, that DraftKings is onto it a little bit here. I will say DraftKings Sportsbook is one of the books that offers you your cash out buttons. So like if Cooper Kupp, Javonte Williams, if these are guys that are only going to go up the board, in your opinions, get them in and sell them. Take your money back when we get to December. If you think it's, unrealistic that they can actually get to the finish line, which both of them probably are, and that's why they have the numbers that they have, but get into the conversation. This sounds dumb, but every bet you place in the futures market doesn't necessarily need to be a winner. It needs to be an investment in some cases. So these awards are maybe some examples of those cases.
Sure.
And just real quick too, in front of Williams is Najee Harris, who's having an incredible year. Like, there's no doubt about that. But if the Steelers end up being the team that we all think that they are, and they're, I guess you could say overperforming by how their record states, because they're probably, they don't play like a team that their record shows. If he starts to fall, that's got to be a good thing for Williams, obviously, because there's such a large gap between those two that the Williams should absolutely overtake him with the schedule that you laid out too. Because you're talking about that upcoming schedule, like almost every team that you mentioned is in as of right now, like the top 10 in yards allowed to opposing running backs. Like he should start getting that gap should be closing a lot quicker than it is right now.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people have it in their minds like, the award's over with right now. Chase is going to win. Like, there's a lot of football left. Like, this is not over with. The kid right now would be the winner. He would deserve it. But like, let's say something happens, or I'm not even going to say like, but you know what I'm saying. Like, the stats start to, he's not there every single week, whatever, and guys start to catch up with him. I think Najee's actually another guy who could catch him because, well, put it this way. I think the 8-1 on Najee Harris can go bye-bye because they get the Lions this week. And, and by the way, how many touches does Najee get like per game? Like, he's the focal point of the offense right now. But if that offensive line could give him any holes, watch out. But they get the Lions and then that Chargers defense. So again, in like 2 weeks, I'm thinking like the 8-1. I think Najee's going to creep up and catch Mac Jones and get close to Jamar Chase. But you're right, Steve, after this, the schedule goes the Bengals, Baltimore, the Vikings, Tennessee, KC, which can be a good game for him, but then the Browns, who are very good defensively, and then the Ravens again. So can he win it? That's a brutal schedule for the Steelers in terms of like winning games overall as well and being in playoff contention.
Yeah, Harris is averaging 48% of the Steelers' total touches at this point.
That's crazy.
Insane.
Do either of you guys actually have any Rookie of the Year tickets in pocket? Because I do like this market a lot. I think it's interesting this year.
I took Pitts early. Obviously, that's kind of fallen out. Yep, that's gone most likely. That's the only one that I had, but I think I actually am going to jump on that Williams one.
Do you have anything going, Mitch?
I got on, I was very fortunate. I got on Mac Jones at 10-1, actually the morning of the Patriots announcing Cam Newton was going to get cut. And I didn't even know that information yet. Jones was 10-1 and every other quarterback was way below that, like Fields and Lance and Lawrence for sure. And Cam was not playing great in the preseason. Mac Jones was, and I'm like, who knows? Maybe he's going to be the starter. I took a flyer on him at 10-1. I have him and I have Michael Carter at 100-1, but he's been playing better football.
Yeah.
But Carter has too much to overcome right now to win that award.
He's another one. I like the player, and like when that closes, he's gonna be in a better spot than when you took it. I have Mac Jones at a good number 2, not as good as you. I have Mac Jones 8-1, and I have Najee Harris 15-1.
Oh, very good.
So I'm in a good spot, but we'll see what happens. And like last thoughts on rookie of the year, like you said, something we're not wishing injury upon anybody, but like Jamar Chase plays wide receiver. He's involved in plays where stuff happens. And even if it's not something, too bad, but a hamstring costs you a few games.
Yep.
Somebody can catch up. And I will say, whatever year the Kyler Murray year was where he won, when there was 1 week left in the regular season, DK Sportsbook had up Josh Jacobs at like even money and Kyler Murray plus 700. And Josh Jacobs sat the last game of the year. Kyler Murray had a good game, and that was all it took to give so literally, Kyler Murray was obviously the favorite the majority of the year. You could have gotten the best number 2 weeks before he won the award, which is insane. So This is a fun market. Just keep an eye on it with where Chase is now. Something can happen where Chase doesn't win it, and you're going to get a great number on whoever you do take.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. We just covered a ton of NFL. Any other talking points we want to get to before we send Steve packing?
Bye.
Send Steve packing. Mitch and I are going to go real quick, just a few minutes apiece on some college sports, some NBA, and we will get you out of here. But we'll be back with the Unreasonable Odds podcast in just a second. All right, we've cut some dead weight. Steve Buchanan's out of here. Unreasonable Odds podcast. I'm Julian Edlow. Follow me on Twitter at Julian Edlow. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Unreasonable Odd. Our guest, Mitch Moss from VSiN, stays with us. You can follow him on Twitter at Mitch Moss Radio. We are going to do some quick reps here. We'll stick with football first, go to college football. I have a few spots that I'm looking at on Saturday, all short underdogs. I'm looking at this Penn State Michigan game. I'm looking at Penn State as the short home dog here. Michigan's done well. We saw them obviously collapse at Michigan State, but they're overachieving, and generally these Harbaugh teams come crashing and burning. We still have the Ohio State game to come, which I cannot wait to get Ohio State in, most likely, depending on the number. I just think this is a spot. Penn State's been down recently. They had, I think it was 3 losses in a row that they had. If you throw that Illinois one in there, then they bounce back with a pretty strong looking win. I think the defense will be ready here at home to kind of slow Michigan. So I have them. I took all these on the money line, a little bit of plus money. Penn State there. BC had them on that Friday night game. They looked great with Djokovic back. Hosting Virginia Tech. Now they go to Georgia Tech, who's been a pretty inconsistent team this year. I think that the Eagles are going to finish strong this year. The quarterback being back and that not being as big of a part of this number as I think it should be plays its role there. And then the letdown spot for Wake. Top 10 team, everything's going for them. They should have beat UNC. They come completely undone, and UNC covers that one. Now they're at home against a good NC State team that's been really good, already racked up 7 wins. NC State plays defense. Wake Forest doesn't. I like both of these. All 3 of these 1.5, 2-point favorites on the money line. Mitch, you can give me maybe your thoughts on any of those, or if you have a Saturday college football best bet you want to throw in there.
I'm with you on North Carolina State. By the way, let me run this at you. What do you right now at DraftKings? The NC State number to win the ACC is plus 550.
Okay.
So if they get by Wake this weekend, they close with Syracuse, and then North Carolina's at home. that game is on Black Friday. So they control their own destiny. And if you look right now at the standings on that side of the conference, they already beat Clemson. So they're 4-1 in league play. With the win over Wake Forest, that's going to drop Wake Forest down to 2 losses on the season. And they would then have to, probably they'd get Pittsburgh in all likelihood. Depends on what happens tonight, obviously, in Pittsburgh and North Carolina. But
right.
NC State could beat Pittsburgh plus 550 right now to win the ACC. I think that's a pretty good number.
I like it. I'm killing myself that I didn't bet the ACC before the season. Not that you would go against Clemson, but we had some without Clemson markets open on DraftKings, which obviously would have been better if you just included them in the field because they, did everything that nobody thought was possible. But the ACC is really interesting. And there's so many, we have no clue who's going to be in that game. We think we know. But that's
what that created, by the way? You know what that created, Julian? I have 2 comparisons for that. Because Clemson's power rating coming into the season was so high.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, well, who do you make the case for? Right. We're just probably going to trust Dabo and that team. They're so good. They're probably going to come out. But that would create incredible numbers for other teams like you talked about. My comparison would be in 2019 for the Golden State Warriors, when they were huge favorites to win the whole thing. Like there were astronomical numbers out there on both the Raptors, who eventually won, and the Bucks that year, they played in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yep. And I mean, you had my co-host had the Raptors at 20-1 and the Bucks at 100-1 that year to win the title, just because there was so much separation. And to tie that into this year, like the Bucks power rating is so high. I grabbed the Bulls at 12-1 to win the Central, just because everybody thought the Bucks were going to run away with it. They won the title. They're going to have everybody back. Well, maybe not the case, but because when you get these huge favorites, it's like kind of an afterthought because they're going to run away with it. Not always the case. And that's where you can come in and find value on these other teams.
I was the square that just would not give up on mashing the Warriors. I'm like, I know the NBA. The NBA is my sport. The talent wins out. Durant will be back. And nope, that was a bad postseason for me because I was too stubborn. I would not give up on the Warriors.
Well, fully healthy, they're not going to lose the title.
Right. And the Durant thing obviously did not go the right way.
Right.
All right. That kind of transitions us into NBA, unless you got anything college-wise. It sounds like NC State is your spot this week.
I like NC State, and I like Texas A&M this week too. Playing a small number against Ole Miss. Yep.
All right, there we go. Transitioning into hoops, I guess we'll start NBA since we're already there. Love your ticket on the Bulls. I was not. I wish I was sitting where you're sitting. I should have gotten a little bit of the division. Thinking back on it now, I have them. I took them minus 150 to make the playoffs. I was willing to lay some juice there at a good number, and I took them the over 43.5 wins. So. Yep. I liked what I saw from the Bulls. Again, last night, they were a team. They were down like 4, I think, late second quarter to the Mavericks, hopped on them at a live pick 'em in that game, and they just wound up blowing out. The Bulls are one of the teams that I have been tailing pretty hard. The other is the Heat, who did well by me early in the season. Then, got a little messy in Denver. Jimmy Butler gets hurt in LA last night. They can't get that one. I bet him as soon as Hero and Bam were ruled in, took laid the 4.5. Lakers actually wound up proving themselves with a somewhat legitimate victory for once. Any thoughts in the NBA in terms of teams that you've been on or going against in the early going?
Been on Charlotte a couple of times. I was on them last night against Memphis. Pretty good team. They're dangerous, I think, the way that they play.
They had been really bad on the road trip, though. I think they lost and went 0-5 ATS going.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. I just think that I thought the number last night was too high with Memphis, who I actually have Memphis to win their division. Not at a great number. It's like plus 450, I believe, and I bet their win total over. They're a game over 500 right now, but I like Morant so much. The kid is so good. I would say this about the Bulls. It gets real starting on Friday, and they've had a couple of nice wins this week over the Nets and the Mavericks, but the next 5 on the road, Golden State, a back-to-back Sunday, Monday with the Clippers and Lakers, Portland, and then Denver. So I think we'll find out a lot about the Bulls. By the way, their fourth quarter defensive efficiency is number 1 in the NBA. They take teams apart defensively so far, and it's a pretty good makeup. I've been on the Jazz a couple times this year. That's been kind of hit and miss because I actually bet them against the Bulls and I lost that game, but I bet them a couple of other times on the season. And who else am I looking at here?
Warriors.
Cavaliers. Cavaliers have been a really good story, right?
Yeah.
Because they're in all of these games, and we saw it again last night. If you grab the 4, boy, they gave that game away, and they'd be right there with the Bulls on top of the Central. But how many games have they won so far this year as like a 6, 6.5, 7.5 point dog? It seems like almost every night.
Yeah, the Cavs have been fantastic, and I think we're going to get better numbers on them with Sexton out.
I think so,
because he's such a big part of that offense. But they survive without him. Garland has been really good. They still bring Rubio off the bench, who like single-handedly beat the Knicks the other night as a 7.5 point dog, right in that wheelhouse that you're talking about. And it's weird. They go with this weird big lineup. For the time being with Lauri Markkanen out, they start Dean Wade, who I was on his prop unders last night because he's out there getting cardio. And then the twin towers of like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, who's been tremendous, deservingly atop that Rookie of the Year board. It's such a weird team, but I like them. I like what the Cavs are doing.
It is. The makeup is a little bizarre, but Ricky Rubio has been awesome so far this year. And I'm with you. I mean, Mobley has been just incredible, and he was really good at USC. But man, the amount of talented rookies that we have in this year's class is it's limitless. How many great players so far appear to be coming out of that 2021 draft class, and he's at the very top along with Scotty Barnes.
And we haven't even seen, the real Cade Cunningham yet because he's been dinged up. He's a guy, normally I would say jump in and get some value on Cade Cunningham because he hasn't gotten going yet. But the way that Barnes and Mobley look, it's tough to advise doing that. But again, there's so much time to go. Cade Cunningham can make up this ground. Other guys can miss some games. It's the NBA. We'll see, but this rookie class is looking good early. The last team I'll throw out there, and it's not a tough one to imagine, but the Warriors are rolling. They've covered, I think, 6 or 7 in a row. I don't have it in front of me. 6 or 7 in a row. They've won. They've won a ton of them by 13 plus. I think they are.
Yep.
I don't know. I just lost the stat that I was trying to use, but the point is the Warriors are covering and they're really good. So, that's kind of something that we say every year, but Klay Thompson isn't even back yet. That's a team to look at for me as well.
What do you think happens, by the way? What are your expectations for the Warriors once Klay comes back?
I think they should be careful with him. And I think they will because they're generally pretty cautious with stuff like this because number one, they have so much firepower. And number two, just kind of their reputation, like that championship pedigree still kind of lingers there where they can get away, even though they've had awful seasons. I mean, they just took a couple of top 7 picks, but they still have this reputation of the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr Warriors that they can get away with it. So they can ease him back in. I think Klay Thompson also gives a really interesting because he's going to take away minutes from Poole. And Poole's a guy in my mind that is very alive for most improved player in the NBA. The last time I looked, he was like 23-1. And the reason he's so far is because Klay is going to take his spot. But if they can keep a spot for him, like I like Poole a lot more than I like Wiggins out there. He's a guy to keep an eye on. But yeah, I like the Warriors long term. I think things will go fine with Klay because it's the core is still the core that won the championships together. So I think that they'll get into a good flow of bringing him back in there, right?
I also think that they're going to could be if they want to be some pretty major players at the trade deadline to acquire somebody else that would help them put them over the top because they know, right? You're exactly right about this championship pedigree, but I think they also realize, like, as great as Steph has been now for pretty much his entire career, minus the ankle problems right away when he came out of Davidson, like that window, it's not going to exist forever. I mean, Klay Thompson has missed 2 full years in a row now. They had Kevin Durant for what seemed like, forever, but that was bam, that's gone now, just like that. So they're not going to be, those 2 players will not be available to play forever. So they need to win as many titles as they possibly can. And I think they're going to be willing to trade some of these younger guys for an established, like really good player in the league before the deadline this year, wanting to win another title.
Oh yeah. I mean, Jonathan Wiseman, a number 2 pick. Jonathan Wiseman? They're both Jonathan Kuminga, a 7 overall pick, another lottery pick in Moody from Arkansas. Like they have pieces that they can move to a team and get somebody.
Imagine this. Imagine had they taken Ball over Wiseman in that draft.
Not a piece they need, but certainly a piece they could do something with for sure. James Wiseman. I don't know why I said Jonathan. Jonathan Kuminga is who I was thinking of. And then James Wiseman just came to me. All right. Last thing we're going to do before we get out of here, because there are two massive college basketball games this weekend. You have the pleasure of being out in Vegas. I'm going to be drinking coffee on my couch for an 11:30 p.m. tip-off on Friday night. Unbelievable. And there's an East Coast team involved in this game. Number 4 Villanova at number 2 UCLA. I get that it's at LA. I get that it's in LA. I don't get that it's not like a 9:30 tip-off for us here out east. But I don't.
Wouldn't you want this every Friday? Come on.
Huh?
Come on. Don't you want this every Friday in a elite marquee matchup in college hoops at midnight Eastern?
No, I mean, yes and no. The 30-year-old, 28-year-old me, yes. The 34-year-old dad here that will have a 2-year-old jumping on my head at 6:30 in the morning does not. But I'm going to have a coffee. I'm going to stay up and have some beers and watch this game. All right, so number 4 Nova at number 2 UCLA. UCLA brings back all 5 starters from that Final Four team. That was not a lightning in a bottle run for them. They are good, but Cody Riley, the big man that starts for UCLA, did hurt his knee at the beginning of that opening game that UCLA blew doors in anyway. So they'll be without some meaningful size in this game. That said, I still think they can get through. They have, some size. They have a big senior off the bench that I anticipate they'll put into the starting 5. And Villanova doesn't start anybody over 6'8". Villanova's good. They're very good. Gillespie maybe will take some time to come back from the knee that he hurt late in the season to get right. Juzang is a terrific player.
Awesome.
I think that UCLA is going to have too much here. They're at home. This was 3 on DraftKings. The Riley news moved it to 2. If it's still there, but laying 2 with UCLA on this spot jumps out to me, especially with it being in LA.
Yeah, I would. I was actually like wishful thinking. I think I had a dream about this game last night.
That's how good this game is. Whoa. And now it's 4. It was 2 this morning. It was 2 on Thursday morning. I promise you. And now it is sitting 4.
Yeah, I was, I think it was, because I had thoughts of going to this game. LA is about a 3.5-4 hour drive from where I live in Vegas. And I really wanted to go to I've never been to Poly Pavilion before. I'd love to go there for a college hoops game. Not going to be able to pull it off. So I actually had a dream that some reason I dreamt that the number was 7. And I was like, oh my God, give me Villanova plus the 7. But at a smaller, this is probably going to be a stay away for me now. I'm with you. I think UCLA is absolutely legit. By the way, Cronin's a really good coach. I didn't think he was going to be able to do it like this in Westwood, but tip of the cap to him. He definitely has a talent again to go on a major run this year. But I also like Jay Wright's one of my favorite coaches in college basketball. And, he won those 2 titles in a 3-year span. And if you go back and look at those teams, like in 2016, 2018, we just talked about the Warriors, Villanova really played outside in basketball as well. And they spaced the floor where they could have 4 guys on the outside who could shoot. They played like Golden State in those championship runs. And that's the makeup of his teams. And if you saw, now I get it. It was Mount St. Mary's. They won by 40, but Justin Moore was awesome. He had 27. He really couldn't miss. They hit 16 threes as a team. They're dangerous. I bet them last April at 22-1 to win the national title. Wasn't a huge bet at all, but it was something I wanted to have down on them, thinking that they'd be really good again this year, but it's probably going to be stay away. And then the other game on Saturday night is also huge, Julian, with Texas taking on Gonzaga.
So let's talk about that one next. And I will say really quickly, I'm wondering as we record this at about 1:45 Eastern, if there's some Villanova news that's going to come out. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it because I'm looking around and a lot of places have this game off the board. DraftKings has it up and it has moved 2 points since this morning. So maybe some Villanova news by the time you're listening to this and you're listening to it thinking we're idiots because we don't know what's going on. We don't know yet, but something might have happened on the Villanova side here. All right. You told me before we came on a number that you had in mind about this Texas Gonzaga game. My thoughts from the beginning, I'll give you my analysis and then we can maybe hear that number and you'll probably know what side I'm going to be on. I think we'll be on the same side, but My only red flag with Texas is lack of size, or just Gonzaga has so much size with Timmy and the freshman Chet Holmgren, who is very long, not very. He's a rail. You can push him around if you get some bigger bodies on him. Texas has guys 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" that they can throw out there, but these are like 6'10" to 7 whatever Holmgren is. So they're gonna be lacking a little size. But the trio of veteran guards that the Longhorns have is huge for me, and that was kind of a part of my handicap with taking Kentucky over Duke. I took the veteran backcourt over the younger bigs, and that one went the wrong way. But I'm gonna go right back to it here. I think Texas getting a whole lot more points than Kentucky, it sounds like, in this spot is going to be the side.
Well, we'll see. Again, this game's not until Saturday night, but a lot of times the number that opens up on these college basketball games is the number that Ken Pom has on his site.
Right.
And he has it a 10-point game. If you look right now, he has Gonzaga 10 over Texas. And if that number actually opens up at 10, I'm going to have to be all over Texas.
So, I mean, double digits in a top 5 matchup on the first weekend of the season seems absurd.
Yeah. And I mean, I love what Mark Few has done. Love the program. Hope that he can win a national title at some point. Thought last year was going to be the year. It wasn't. And Timmy is such a good college basketball player, but they lost a ton of talent. And Suggs was like the ultimate college point guard. He was so good. And guys like Ayayi and Kispert also there with like veteran leadership. And like he brought in a ton of talent. Clearly that's going to be the case. And they're going to dominate the West Coast. But like not every 5-star recruit is built equally, and not every recruiting class is the same just because it might be a top 5 or a top 10 recruiting class in the country. And I think overcoming their losses from last year will be a lot. And I don't think it's appropriate or accurate to think that Gonzaga by default has to be like the 6-1 shorter shot to win the national title, because I think they're not going to be as good as they were last year.
I'm with you there. I'm looking at the Kansas's, Kentucky's, maybe even Texas, those type of teams at much better numbers if you're going to pick a winner right now. And very curious to see what this number opens, and very curious to go try and find out why this Villanova UCLA game has moved 2 points on Thursday morning. But that about does it for us here on Unreasonable Odds. We threw plenty of information at you across 4 sports. Thank you, Mitch Moss from VSiN, for coming on with us on the Unreasonable Odds podcast. It was great to have you make your return. You got it, Julian. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate that. Good luck with your bets tonight and this weekend. Same to you, and same to all of you, the listeners. We'll be back next week, a more normal week now that we don't have the sports betting national championships, with our normal Monday episode, kind of recapping the week for you. We'll do Odds Are with Johnny Edlow, and hopefully be talking about some winners that we cashed in NFL Week 10. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.